I think one of the most difficult parts of clinical trial recruitment is that you often will have families and individuals living with the disease who volunteer to participate, who go through that really arduous decision-making process, fact-finding, debating, contemplating, and then are told they don't qualify. For whatever reason, they're not able to participate in the study. That is a very frustrating but very common occurrence. And what I would say to those families is number one, clinical trials are designed in a way to try to get to the right answer as quickly as possible, because everyone is trying. This is a very lengthy process. Drug development for rare diseases usually takes anywhere from 7 to 10 years and potentially even longer. And so, believe it or not, people are actually trying to work expeditiously and move these things along. And so inclusion and exclusion criteria gets developed by the sponsor in coordination with leading physicians who really understand the disease and regulatory agencies who need to see certain amounts of very specific data, in fact, very clear answers to their questions in order to approve a product for people to use in what we call a commercial setting or a non-clinical setting or clinical trial setting. There's no negating the fact that being not qualifying for a trial is very difficult. But I also think families really need to understand that that process is not personal. The company or the researchers involved in that treatment do not make the decisions. The patient advocacy organizations do not make those decisions. Those decisions are made in such an unbiased, specific, data-oriented way because they have to be. The whole point of clinical research is to not have bias. It's to bring the right and best participants for that study into the clinical trial itself. And so I think frankly, there's an element of trust here that communities need to have in the process. And that can be very challenging. You're sort of giving control of a process over to, most of the time, strangers. But this is very methodical. It's one of the most methodical parts of, I think, of medicine, frankly, is clinical research. And so I think families who want to participate and can't, I know it can be frustrating, it can be disappointing, and especially if you're dealing with a fatal condition, it can really just be the most terrible news you get. Sometimes people describe it as being worse than getting the diagnosis itself, is knowing something may be able to help and you can't access it. And I don't really have words to provide comfort in that setting. I've been with those families in my own career. But what I try to help people understand is that we're all trying to do this for the greater good, for the good of the whole community. And there are reasons, whether we want to accept them or be comfortable with them, there are reasons that go into who gets selected for trials and who doesn't.